Oh, that was really nice. Thanks for talking back to me. How's everybody doing tonight? Some very honest answers, others not so much maybe. Tonight, Christy has specially requested that we sit in tables. I think there's some more discussion tonight, so I invite you guys to move around so you're joining a few other people. I'll give you all a second to do that. Does this work? Okay. Hold on. I was really disoriented because I felt like I couldn't see anybody on this side. So, all right, everybody. As we get started, I just want to invite you all to just take some really big, deep breaths with me. I want to invite you into this space tonight, into this community tonight, and I just want to speak over you how valuable you are. I want to speak over you that value comes from not the things that you do, but from your personhood. I want to welcome you here into this space. If you walk in and you are feeling good and energized and excited for things that are happening in your world. I want to welcome you into this space if you walked in here feeling tired or weary or exhausted and run down. I want to welcome you into this space if you've walked in here and you're feeling discouraged or heartbroken or depressed or stressed. And I want to welcome you if you've walked in here feeling like you don't belong, like you don't fit in. I want to offer that this community is a space that we put a lot of intention into creating safety, but we don't assume that that's how you're going to feel. But our love is big. And we celebrate every piece of who you are, every experience that you have survived, that you have overcome, that has made you who you are. And I just want to remind you that you are loved, that you are seen, and that if you would like to, that you belong here. The song that has been on my heart a lot this week and really heavy today. In fact, when I called Christy, I told her that, or when she called me, that talk about tonight, that it was a song that I was literally crying through this morning. And it's a song we've done here a bit before. It's called Someday Soon. But as you listen to it, I just want to invite you to listen to it maybe through this perspective. At the end in the bridge, it talks about how sometimes the cold winds blow. Sometimes the wolves rush in. Don't think the battle's over just because you say amen. And I just want to remind you that sometimes I think there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of this culture, especially in highly spiritualized communities, that want to communicate this experience that the stress, the pain, the heartache, the struggle goes away when we pray, when we believe. And I just want to speak into that that's not true. And it's not an absence or a lack of faith, but suffering is a part of the human existence. And while we gather together, I just hope that you hear from our heart that we never want to dismiss what you're going through, what you've been through, whether we can intimately understand it or not. The chorus of this song says, "Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough." And as I was singing through this today, the image in my head was not that necessarily the stress and the heartache just goes away, because that feels really dismissive and healing takes a really long time. But I want to speak into the fact that the entities, the systems, the people who often have such harmful perspectives and actions in our lives, that those things are not eternal, and that you deserve to be in spaces where that is not your every single day. That you deserve to be in spaces where you are supported, affirmed, loved, listened to, and believed. And that nothing, no system, no organization, no person deserves to have the power for you to decide to give up. So wherever you're at today, I hope that these words just are solidarity, maybe they're encouragement. I invite you to listen, and if you'd like, you're welcome to sing along. There is a shadow in the hallway, trying to frighten you. Don't let the darkness surround you. You can make it through. Don't you give up on the kingdom. Think it's crashing in. No, it ain't worth all the worry. They will let you in. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Sometimes the weight of decisions try to bury you. Don't let the same tell you something that you know ain't true. Just 'cause you feel like a stranger, that don't mean you are. God, I could use a reminder what forgiveness is for. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Sometimes the cold wind blows, sometimes the wolves rush in. Don't think the battle's over just 'cause you say amen. Sometimes the cold wind blows, sometimes the wolves rush in. Don't think the battle's over just 'cause you say amen. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Someday soon these worries roll on. Someday soon enough. Oh God, God our friend. God, I just want to speak over this place. Those words of hope, those words of encouragement, and words of belonging and community and love. God, as Christy shares our heart, I just pray for those feelings to just exist in this place, that it would feel safe enough to feel, to be, and to exist. We love you.
All right. So we are going to continue our journey through the Sermon on the Mount. Last week we talked about what it looks like to be radical, and recognizing that Jesus was radical, and so much of his ministry and his heart came to completely flip what people expected of religion completely upside down. So we're kind of walking piece by piece through this. So last week he kind of shares what we call the Beatitudes, right, which we looked at. With the blessed are the weak, blessed are the grieving, blessed are the peacemakers, right? Essentially, blessed are the people that are on the margins. Blessed are the struggling. Blessed are the ones that are often seen as the underdog, is kind of what Jesus is saying. And then he immediately makes this statement that we're going to talk about tonight. And so he says this in Matthew 5, verses 13 through 16. Many of you have heard this before. So we're going to do something completely different tonight with this verse. But here's what he said. Red letters, he says, "You are the salt of the earth. But what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." So here's what I love about this passage, okay? How many of you guys have heard this before? A lot of us have heard salt and light illustrations before. So one of the things that I love about this is Jesus proclaims this, and he talks about how we are salt and we are light long before there was a science for us to fully understand the power and the importance of salt and light. And there's something really beautiful for me about that. He is prophetically proclaiming, you are essential to this world. Before anyone really understood just how essential salt was and was going to be in the formation of civilization. And so here's what I want to do tonight. I want to do something very different than what we normally do. We are going to watch a couple of videos tonight. I did a lot of geeking out this week, and I watched a lot of documentaries about salt and light. And instead of me just retelling you what I learned, I picked out my two favorites, and you're going to watch them. And then we're going to watch the one on salt first, and then I want you to talk at your tables for a few minutes about what you learned about salt that you didn't know before and how you can apply that to Jesus's call for us to be the salt of the earth. And then you're going to share what you guys came up with everybody else. So essentially, I'm just facilitating tonight. Y'all are helping to preach. So I'm going to hit the lights. We're going to watch this first one. The first one's a little bit longer. It's about 7 minutes long, but I really think you guys will find this interesting because there's a lot of things about salt. And like, I don't know about y'all, but like, I'm like, salt's $1.50 at the grocery store. That's not a big deal. But you're going to discover how critical salt really is to existence and to civilization in this video. So I'm going to hit the lights, watch this, and then we're going to talk about it.
When you think of salt, you probably think of something you use to flavor your fried potato slices, or that thing that makes seawater undrinkable. But this combination of an explosive metal and a deadly gas gives us what is in a sense the only rock that us humans eat. And this little rock has come to build empires, define economies, pave trade routes, and both start and decide the outcomes of bitter wars. It was never actually more valuable than gold, I'll just get that out of the way right now, but in a way, it had an even stronger impact on history. Ever wondered how Venice built such a huge trading empire? Salt. How India got its independence from the British? Salt. Why America wanted their independence from the British? Also salt. How Spain suffered from hyperinflation after the conquest of the Inca Empire? Well, actually that was silver, but you get the idea. Made possible with the support of NordVPN. So, salt. Why do we attach so much importance to this little white mineral? Well, yeah, it does taste good, and sure, it can slightly alter the chemical composition of foods, bringing out flavors that wouldn't be brought out otherwise, but also, salt is essential for muscle control, neurotransmissions, and maintaining a proper fluid balance. And a low salt presence in blood means hyponatremia, a condition which can include nausea, headaches, fatigue, heart problems, and other lovely symptoms like that. While salt is important for the functioning of our bodies, however, that's far from the only thing salt can be used for, and indeed not exactly what would come to kick off the importance of the salt trade. The same thing that makes too much salt dangerous to us also makes salt, in a sense, the original preservative, as it absorbs water, drawing off whatever it touches and leaving it inhospitable to bacteria. This made salt an important asset in a world where refrigeration was only really possible in these regions. Salt allowed early civilizations to store perishable goods like meats for longer periods of time, allowing them in a sense to declare independence from the seasons, or at least from seasonal food shortages, as well as transport food to faraway places in a 5-kilometer-an-hour world. Salt, however, wasn't all that easy to extract. Now, sure, you could go to your nearest ocean and boil off a bucket of water, but what if you don't live near an ocean? Or maybe you do live near an ocean, but the climate isn't hot or dry enough. If that's the case, you're going to have to rely on special salt deposits, which could give an important edge to any city near one. While this was the case in most countries, especially in Europe, China started collecting salts by evaporating seawater as far back as the 27th century BC. And this early salt trade actually gave rise to some of the earliest forms of taxation, with revenue from these salt taxes allowing them to finance wars, expeditions, and construction projects. Plus, I suppose it's a little fitting that one of the first things to ever be taxed was salt, of all things. At the same time, Egypt was also harvesting salt from seawater, as well as from rock salt in the desert, with one particularly large source being the Wadi an-Natron, boasting a large deposit of a particular type of salt which would be named after this area, natron, as well as the Latinized name for the element sodium, natrium, which explains the Na in the periodic table. The Egyptians also quickly learned of salt's ability to preserve meats and make olives a hell of a lot more edible after soaking them in salt water, and naturally also used them to help preserve their oh-so-famous mummies. Over in Rome, however, the expansion of the city during the early years of the Republic necessitated the construction of a road across the peninsula to the town of Castrum Turrentinum, now known as Martini Sicuro, on the coast of the Adriatic, which, largely due to its shallow depths, had a higher salt content, allowing for easier harvesting than in the Tyrrhenian. Now, we'll get back to this in a second. This road, which had already been in use for several centuries as a trail by people known as the Sabines, was christened the Via Salaria in the 3rd century BC, a not-so-subtle hint to its purpose. And in fact, the Latin word salis, or sal, gives us the words for many things that we don't even generally associate with salt today, even if they do have a lot of salt in them. Like, for instance, a certain dish of salted greens, or herba salata, giving us salad, or sausages, for which you might also accompany with a sauce. And in fact, the word salary also seems to have a connection to salt, though etymologists aren't actually quite sure how or why. A common explanation is that Roman soldiers were paid in salt, as it was so valuable. But there aren't actually any records of this, though some propose that a so-called salarium was money given for the purposes of buying salt as well as other goods. But again, there aren't any written records on this. Back on the topic of the Via Salarium though, this road was one of the earliest of many different salt roads, connecting salt deposits with major cities and port towns largely across Europe. One of the most notable of these salt roads was the Alte Salzstraße, or Old Salt Route, yeah, try saying that 5 times fast, connecting the salt mines in Lüneburg to the port city of Lübeck, both in the modern-day German state of Schleswig-Holstein. This route proved essential to the cities on the Baltic coast, in turn partially allowing for the prosperity of the Hanseatic League. And speaking of all this, the Adriatic. Maybe someone should set up a trading empire there. I'll do it, said Venice, who for 1100 years ruled a maritime republic situated throughout the Adriatic and Ionian seas. In the early years especially, the Venetian Republic prospered from the salt trade, with the aforementioned abundance of salt in the Adriatic, and especially in the lagoons surrounding Venice, even pioneering a new technique of extracting salt from seawater by evaporating the water away in stages, transferring the brine into different pools as the salt concentration grew more and more. All this in turn allowing Venice to expand its influence and import spices from the east to be traded among the European market. The Vikings also took over salt deposits across northern Europe, as an important staple on Viking voyages was salted cod, as cod is a less fatty fish and could therefore be more easily dried out and salted to be preserved for a long time. It wasn't just in Europe or China where the salt trade made empires prosper on the economic stage, with both Ethiopia and the Ghana Empire, in modern-day Mali and Mauritania, growing crazy rich with the establishment of camel-based trade routes to other regions. Of course, many towns and cities within Europe would be named after salt, reflecting their proximity to the oh-so-important salt mines, such as Salzburg from the German Salz, or Tuzla from the Turkish Tuz, or Melicha from the Maltese Melch, and many English towns with names ending in wich, like with Droitwich, Middlewich, Northwich, and Leftwich, though the suffix can also refer to the trading of goods other than salts. Not every country, however, was quite so lucky in this regard, with Sweden, for instance, briefly establishing a salt refinery in St. Barthélemy in the Caribbean. While Sweden's colonial ambitions didn't come to bear as much as hoped, Britain's early colonies prospered off the salt they were able to harvest on their own. However, self-sufficient colonies are colonies that could potentially break away, so Britain made sure to keep British salt cheaper than local salt, later only providing the settlers enough salt to produce goods for themselves and for Britain, but suspiciously never enough to export stuff to other countries. Tea taxes are of course the most well-known of motivations for the American Revolution, but taxes on salt were also a motivation and a major political weapon in the ensuing War for Independence. Salt had also provided an effective political weapon in Mahatma Gandhi's fight for India's independence, or India-pendence, from the British. With his march to the sea to collect salt from the beach, something the British had banned in order to establish a monopoly over salt and discourage protests, itself sparking more protests for independence, but that's definitely a story for another time. Salt has been used as a political tool by many empires over thousands of years, and to many ancient cultures was, and still is, considered sacred. Nowadays, however, with the help of modern technology, salt has become more commonplace, going from something civilizations use to wipe out enemy cities, to something we just use to wipe out enemy road ice. And from salt being essentially a luxury product, to something so abundant that many of us today are in danger of eating too much of it.
Sailing the high internets be a dangerous undertaking. Aye, there be storms, no vitamin C, or even knowledge of what vitamins are, and of course, pirates. Luckily, protecting yourself from these treacherous scallylegs be easy with our mateys at NordVPN. NordVPN provides an easy way to protect your ship, your crew, and your precious data.
Indeed. And
Perfect. Okay. Minus the pirate commercial at the end. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to talk at your tables for a few minutes and process if you learned anything about salt, because I felt like there was a lot of things that I didn't realize. But I want you guys to talk about that for a few minutes from this video, and how do you apply that to Jesus calling us to be the salt of the earth? And then we're going to talk about that as a big group here for a few minutes. All right, you guys, give me some of your takeaways. Chris. Anything that can be good can be bad, right? Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah, the toxic religiosity of having too much of that definitely has spoiled a lot of beautiful things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think what's interesting about that point is, so Jesus calls us to be the salt of the earth, right? Jesus calls us to love one another. Jesus calls us to go out and build relationships, right? In the Great Commission, when he says, go into the world and make disciples. I think one of the things that we have seen happen historically is when we did that, so much so that we started to colonize and we started to wipe out other cultures and try to replace them with what we felt, right? What Christianity felt like was what they felt like was success, or how they felt people should worship, or they felt people should pray, or they felt that people should build church buildings. And so, exactly, I think one of the things I want you to connect with is when Jesus says, be the salt of the earth, there is a balance that we are called to hold in that, and attention that we're called to hold, because some salt is beautiful and wonderful and enhancing and flavorful and makes things better, but too much, and the way we see it tied to political power, is definitely an example for what happens when we let religion take over and replace relationship. How about you guys? What did you talk about? Yes. Yes. Okay. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let me stop you there for just a second, because I want to note something. I think one thing that's really interesting, again, you see the preservative nature of salt, and then you also see the destructive nature of salt, especially when we see how it was used politically. And so, like, what does that look like for us when it comes to how do you influence culture? How do you build community? How do you preserve this call that Jesus gave that was beautiful and organic and relational in the first century, as people walked that out with him, yet got really twisted and warped and used to help capitalize across the globe? And that tension is another piece that I think needs to be named. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. So last night, there was a really great real-time, real-life example of this kind of dichotomy that played out at dinner last night. So Friday night dinners are served at Pitt's Chapel, and we have an amazing team that makes those dinners and serves those dinners, and that's part of how they love out loud, right? And that is a beautiful expression of preserving life and preserving community and preserving relationships and taking care of people that we love and caring for our neighbors. But right as they were getting ready to serve last night, they pulled in and there was a truck and a trailer already there. And an uninvited local ministry decided, because they knew a lot of people gathered there, it clearly was the right place to come and deliver a really hateful message. And so they unloaded a speaker and a microphone and began to preach at everyone. Yes, and a baptismal. And so they began to preach at everyone and tell them all how wrong they are and all the things that they're doing wrong, how they need to change their life. Tracy, our good friend, who is the pastor at Pitt's, was able to address the situation and say, these people are being loved on and your presence is not needed here tonight. And they left. But those are those moments, right, where we can see the beauty of faith being walked out at the exact same time, kind of like the example you gave, Sharita, right? Like at the exact same time, two different realities can exist. Right? The salt can melt the ice on the roads and save lives and make it easier for us to get around and make it easier for people to go to work in the winter. But at the exact same time that it is helping, it's also causing damage to the body of your car. And if you don't deal with that correctly in a time-efficient way, it can literally eat through the body of your car. It can damage your paint. It can cause a lot of issues. And so I need us to always be conscious. I think that's so important that we are always aware that Christianity is a call, and it is a privilege, and it is a relationship, and it has a beautiful side to it, but at the exact same time that it may seem beautiful to you, it can be perceived as really harmful and really hurtful to somebody else. And so being aware that not just what we think, but how somebody receives that is just as important. And I think salt gives us kind of that big picture analogy in a big way. Yes? Yep. Freaking capitalism. If you listen to our podcast, that's our mantra. I was going to say, yeah. Yep. Yep. When you go back and you look historically at a lot of these conflicts, you're exactly right. These are the issues that they come down to: religion, power, land, and resources like salt. Literally helped to shape the geopolitical nature of our globe as kingdoms expanded and countries were founded and all of these things started to happen. You see those proximities to resources also oftentimes led to a proximity of religion. You see that where those places were really successful, like Venice or like Rome, or where they had these big, beautiful salt mines, and that's also where we see a lot of the giant cathedrals. That's where we see a lot of the very big and influential churches that sprung up and really helped to shape a lot of those movements, where Jesus would have gone and flipped the tables. Or if you've seen the meme going around Facebook, Jesus would have flipped over the table. Somebody, I don't know if you guys saw that this week, somebody posted and asked AI to show a picture of Jesus flipping over the table, and it's literally Jesus somersaulting over a table. So that was really fun. All right, anybody else? April, your table, did you guys have any thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. How it was very formative in creating what that looked like. So here's a couple more things I want you to think about before we move on to light, okay? When it comes to salt and food, or even salt and icy roads, okay? Salt is of no good to us if it's sitting in our cabinet, right? How many of you have salt sitting in your cabinet at home, okay? And you make a meal, right? You go through and you make that meal. You have the choice whether or not you are going to open your cabinet, get the salt out, and apply it to your food. If you're like my husband, a lot to your food. And so, but I think this is one of those places we also see a really tangible example that we can relate to when it comes to salt, because there are way too many people who claim to love Jesus and claim to follow Jesus who are very content to sit in a cabinet, to sit in the dark, to sit where it's safe, to sit in this space out here. And there is so much potential that they have to improve, to add flavor, to share their gifts, to share and enhance life and community and relationships. But it's easier to stay in this space, right? What? You don't want unsalted food. It's gross. You're exactly right. And so those are spaces where we're responsible, right? Like, I'm not going to go over to Sharita's house and eat dinner with Sharita and be like, yo, let me salt your food for you because it's really upsetting me that you're not salting your food. Like, it's individual, right? Like, I have to choose to do that for myself. I've also got to figure out what that looks like. And so, again, when we start to like dictate culture, and we start to say, this is what you need, this is how much of it you need, this is what it should look like, we're doing that exact same kind of thing. And so giving people an opportunity to engage and to be relational, I think is really important. Here's another thing I want you to think about when it comes to salt. I have a kid in culinary school. So this morning we were talking about salt, and he says, do you know that there's 12 different kinds of salts that you can cook with? And I did not. So I had to look them up. I've learned so much this week about salt. But anyway, again, not all salt is the same, right? And certain salts have different presence and different flavors and different meanings, and they react with different foods different ways, just like each of us are different and we're unique. And I want you to keep those pieces in mind too, because when Jesus says you are called to be the salt of the earth, I don't think he's saying everybody's called to be table salt, right? Some people may need to be rock salt so that we have ice cream, and some people need to be salt that melts the road. And what kind of salt? Road salt, see? Some people need to be sea salt. Holly is probably sea salt. So like Epsom salts that soothe and take care and like ease people's wounds. Truffle salt, see? Everybody is called to be something different and unique. And so a lot of times I think when we hear these passages where Jesus says, be the salt, be the light, we feel like that's a call to sameness and oneness that only looks the same. And we add it to our checklist. Like, how can I be the salt today? Check, right? When in reality, it's not about doing it as a checklist, it's about living it as a lifestyle and engaging in that space and recognizing how much we each have to add to the world that's around us. So when Jesus talks about this passage, he says, you are the salt of the earth. And if you lose your saltiness, you can't get it back, right? Now, that's an interesting statement, I think, because anybody ever lost your hope? Lost your faith, lost your way, lost your motivation for a while? Like, there's a lot of things that we can lose that we can get back, right? But I think what Jesus is saying is like, you are called to be something, and that something in being salt is really, I think, a call for our life. And you get one life, right? That we don't get a do-over on. We get this day. And once this day is gone, we don't get it back, right? I can't redo today and call a mulligan, right? I can do better tomorrow. I can learn and I can move forward. But I think when Jesus is saying you can't get your saltiness back, it's an issue of time. It's an issue of energy. It's an issue of I can't go back and redo that situation, but man, I can do better in the future. I can apply that differently in the future. So when he talks about salt, he also talks about light. And I love, love, love this video. So I'm super excited to share it with you and for you to process it. So let me hit the lights again. This one's shorter.
In daylight, our big blue marble is all land, oceans, and clouds. But the night is electric. Seen from space, our planet comes alive with light. This new view of the Earth's night lights is a composite of data acquired by the polar orbiting SUMI NPP satellite. Aboard the satellite, a newly designed instrument called VEERS is able to collect what scientists say is a remarkably detailed view of the Earth at night. In some places, city lights resemble solitary stars in the night sky. In other places, dense clusters of galaxies. The satellite can even distinguish brightly lit boats that line Egypt's Nile River, and the massive flames from gas flares produced as a byproduct of oil and gas exploration in the Middle East. As the satellite passes over the darkness of the Himalayas, it shows how human settlement is bound by natural borders. Even political borders are starkly visible in this view of North and South Korea, and in a line of fishing boats that dot the Yellow Sea. But not all light is electric. Glowing just as bright, flaming wildfires burn across Australia. This new view of the Earth at night offers a unique perspective for exploring the many places in which we live and seeing the impact of human populations around the world, no matter how faint or how bright their lights shine.
All right, guys, talk to me. What are you thinking? Rue, I'm going to start with your table. Mm-hmm. 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 Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I was gonna say, you didn't know that you could necessarily see freedom as lights, but you can. And I think that that's a really, really powerful image. I also really like the image where they talk about the Himalayas and how you can see like how man can't go any further than where these borders exist. And so you see those kind of like limitations of humanity based upon those lines of light. Yeah. Yep, you're exactly right though. Those concentrations, right? So let me ask you this. What does that say to us about the church? Because we all know that everything west of the Mississippi River is still very populated, right? But I think there's something about what happens when we shine a light individually or as a smaller group versus what happens when we can learn how to work together. We can pool our resources, we can combine things, and we can make that light amplified in big ways, which has good and bad pieces to it as well. Yep. Right? Right. There's beautiful lights, right? Like Christmas lights and candle lights, and there's destructive lights like wildfires and nuclear explosions. Yes, absolutely. Jeff. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. So you're exactly right, and I'm also gonna add a layer to that, right? If we talk about this in terms of the church, right? We live in an era where mega churches are like the thing, right? And you've got all these big mega churches and their big fancy rock concert like services and their pastors that wear skinny jeans and look like rock stars. Anyway, I want you to think about too, like in those cities where they light up, right? Where there's these large collections of lights. We also know if you go to New York or you go to Philadelphia, you go to Boston, you go to Beijing, and you go outside to look at the stars, you're not going to see anything, right? Because all you're going to see. Okay, thank you, Mr. New York. Bob is defending the fact that New York City is what I'm talking about and not the state of New York. But what I'm saying is, thank you, Bob, is you go out and you want to see the beauty of nature and you look up and there's nothing there, because what you're left with, right, is kind of this light haze, light pollution that just reflects back onto itself. And there's like a whole thing we could talk about if you want to draw that analogy to these big mega church movements, because we lose sight of what we're actually there for, right? We lose sight of the beauty of creation when we're in this space of just being entertained and around what is being manufactured all the time. Yeah. 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 Holly, are you in here? There you are. Not everybody I know listens to Flip Table. Will you share just real quickly? Sharita kind of explained it, but talk about how you were sharing on the podcast this week, how nature actually needs darkness. Sure. Here, you can use my ear.
Grab a different microphone.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Either way.
Sure. I was trying to share and be nice.
I don't want to stand up here. Okay, nerdy nature knowledge coming your way. So something that has been more of a recent learning of mine, I think that has been super impactful just as a human being, is that something that's really cool about trees, but this is like very symbolic of all other plants and growing things, is that our plants require darkness in order to grow. They require periods of hibernation, which is winter, the season of wintering. Even in seasons that don't have all 4 seasons, there's still an off season where the weather's a little cooler and those trees stop with their producing of fruit and things like that. So they're actually in a season of hibernation, but they also require seasons of darkness. And so the cyclical 24 hours is really important to them to grow strong, to be able to grow so that they're providing the right amount of fruit and flowering and stuff like that to reproduce. And so trees who are growing inside of cities do not actually grow as strong and as well because they're exposed to often constant light. And so we still see trees because they're incredibly resilient. And that's a word I like to use for nature, because it's a very common, like, they grow despite our disruptions and our interventions with them, but they are not at the capacity that they should be, and a lot of the times they die a lot sooner. And so I feel like that's really beautiful of human beings, is like, if our plants require darkness to be able to grow and become who they're supposed to be, we also require that period of rest. Who's that?
Yeah, and I think.
Sorry.
I'm just going to add to that really quick. I think, again, just like salt, right? When Jesus says you are to be the salt of the earth and the light, I think it's important to realize that that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be on and shining 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Like, you need some natural rhythms too to also recharge your light. And also, I think when we are constantly in that go mode of trying to be the light and shine the light, we miss out on seeing Jesus and experiencing the beauty of who God is and the different ways that God may be trying to speak to us, because we're so focused on where we're trying to shine our spotlight, we may miss something that's happening in the shadows. And so sometimes it's important for us to embrace that seasonal kind of rhythm in ourselves too, as a form of worship. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I'm going to go to Michelle, and then I'm coming to you, Chris. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. When scripture says that Jesus says, I am the light, right? And when he calls us to be light, right? He's not calling us to replace, he's calling us to reflect. And I think that that's really important for all of us to ponder. What does that look like for us to be reflectors of the light of Jesus, the love of Jesus, the compassion of Jesus, the mercy of Jesus? And how do we look for places to reflect that light into the world around us that needs light, that needs hope, that needs love in those spaces? Chris, what were you going to say? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of dictates those seasons in ourselves too, not just in the world. So here's one last thought that I want to offer to us on light tonight before we call it an evening. I love the fact that we have technology that can allow us to see the world from those kind of vantage points. And there's something really beautiful about seeing that. And I think it's a really epic way for us to be reminded that you have no idea how far your light reaches, right? Like when we drive into Springfield, when we drive up the East Coast or, we're whatever, like we see the lights when we come into it and we get to experience it while we need it. But then if we're driving through, like we leave and we're back in the dark and we kind of forget, right? But the fact that you can see not just the brightly collected cities, but that you could also see some of those smaller areas that showed up faintly, but they still showed up. When Jesus says that you are to be like a city on a hill that cannot be hidden, there is no more beautiful representation of that than what we can now capture with satellites. Because you can't hide those lights. You can't hide the way that you present yourself into the world. And people are going to see that. People are going to experience that. Whatever you choose to reflect, whether it is the love of Jesus or the emotions of a hard day or the anger that you have over injustice, like whatever that looks like, you don't know who is watching, who is benefiting from your light. And you have no idea how far your light reaches. And I think that is so critical because so many times I think we think, oh, well, I'm just this dim little light, right? No one's going to notice if I don't shine today. No one's going to notice if I don't show up today. All these other lights are shining. It'll be fine. There's other people, right? Your light matters, and people notice that, and they see that, and your light extends so much further than what you understand, and the impact and the reach of that, of your life, of your light, of your love, is innumerable, and it cannot be captured in our lifetime. I think a lot of us will not know the full impact of the light that we chose to reflect and shine in this world until we are on the other side of this life, and we get to see it in an eternal perspective. And so my call and my challenge to you this week is to think about these things, these very practical things that Jesus presents us with, to be salt and to be light. And I want you to go through your week this week thinking about salt a little bit differently. And I want you to go through your week this week thinking about lights and how you can see some of that from space. You want to entertain yourself for an hour on YouTube? Google light from Earth from space. There are so many cool videos. There's one that was way longer than we could have shown, but it shows like the 50 most beautiful cities from space. And it goes through like all these different areas that you can see lit up, and you can like literally make out some of the coastlines and some of those spaces. I loved the fact you could see the Nile. Like that's crazy to me. So I want you to engage in this week as something to challenge you, but also think of this as a form of worship this week. Take some time to ponder the beauty that was creation and intention in light and salt, and the call for us to be both in the world around us. So I'm going to ask Holly if she'll come up and close us with a very appropriate song for tonight. And I just want to invite you to kind of use this as a meditation on these comments we talked about.
My microphone keeps sinking. Okay, I'm going to attempt this song. It's a fun twist on this little light of mine. We'll see if I get it right. I learned it not very long ago. This little light of mine used to be too scared to shine. When mine met yours, I would run and hide, but in time I came to find I want to shine so bright it makes the whole world smile and pay back this beautiful feeling that allows me to be whatever I want to be. And I am gonna be free and easy. This little light of mine used to be too scared to shine. When mine met yours, I would run and hide, but in time I came to find I want to shine so bright it makes the whole world smile and give back this beautiful feeling that allows me to be whatever I want to be. And I am gonna be free and easy. And I am gonna be free and easy. All right, friends, make sure to take cupcakes with you because there is a lot of cupcakes. There's some light and probably some salt in the cupcakes.
Famine so never met the feast. When home is the valley of a beast. The ocean is over your head, and the boat beneath you is sinking. Don't need room for your bags. Hope is all that you have. To see the Lord spread wide. Hold your babies tight. Surely someone will reach out ahead and show you a safe place to land. Oh, imagine yourself in a building up in flames, being told to stand still. The windows wide open, this leap is on faith. You don't know who will catch you, maybe somebody will. Surely someone will reach out a hand
and show you a safe place to land.
be the hand of a hopeful stranger, little scared but just strong enough. Be the light in the dark of this danger till the sun comes up. Be the hand of a hopeful stranger, a little scared but just strong enough. Oh, be the light in the dark of this danger till the sun comes up. Be the hand of a hopeful stranger, little scared but just strong enough. Be the light in the dark of this danger till the sun comes up. Till the sun comes up. Oh, oh.
Till the sun comes,
Till the sun.
till the sun comes up, till the sun
Till the sun comes up. I wish that I could change the weather just to see your smiling face. You know I'm with you, come whatever. We're gonna see the brighter days. Don't lose hope when the world is against you. Every high, every low, I am for you. Don't let go when you're at the end of your rope. I'll hold you, darling, don't lose hope. I'll stay here with you till the morning breaks, until the light moves past the dark. I'm gonna see you through this heartache. You're stronger than you think you are. Don't lose hope when the world is against you. Every high, every low, I am for you. Don't let go, you're at the end of your rope. I'll hold you, darling, don't lose hope. We can make it out alive. Oh, you know that I believe it. Even after the darkest of nights, oh, the sun will shine and you'll feel it. Oh, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope when the world is against you. Every high and every low, I'm for you. Don't let go, you're at the end of your road. I'll hold you, darling, don't lose hope. see trees of green and red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and also are the faces of all the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll know much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
So darling, darling, stand by me.
Stand by me. Oh yeah, stand by me. Stand by me.
Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea,
I won't cry. I won't cry. No, I won't shed a tear. Just as long as you stand by me.
so darling, darling, stand by me.
Stand by me. Oh yeah, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me.
Whenever you're in trouble, won't you
Stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh yeah, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me.
So darling, darling,
Stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh yeah, stand by me. Stand by me. Stand by me.
so darling, darling,
Stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Yeah, stand by me. Stand by me.
stand by me, stand by me, stand by me,
Stand by me.
There's a land that I see where the people are free, and I say it ain't far to this land from where we are. Take my hand, come with me where the people are free. Come with me, take my hand, and we'll live in a land where the river runs free, in a land through the green country, in a land to a shining sea, and you and me are free to be, you and me. I see a land bright and clear, and the time's coming near when we'll live in this land, you and me, hand in hand. Take my hand, come along, lend your voice to my song. Come along, take my hand, sing a song for a land where the river runs free, for a land through the green country, for a land to a shining sea, for a land where the horses run free, and you and me are free to be, you and me. Every child in the land, may you all understand that you're proud and you're strong and you are right where you belong. Take my hand, come with me where the people are free. Come with me, take my hand, and we'll run to a land tree, to a land, to a shining sea, to a land where the horses run free, to a land where the people are free, and you and me are free to be. You and me are free to be. You and me are free to be. You and me. You and me. Bring me your weak, your weary. Bring me your strange and cold. I come for hope and healing, that you won't feel alone. So raise up, raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up, raise up. I have told you that I am the way and the truth and the life. I'm justice, I'm all that is right. Carry on now, carry on. Carry on now. And there's a galaxy behind your eyelids, and there's a war in your house, and there's a meaning that is far beyond us, and there is courage in doubt. So raise up, raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up, raise up. I have told you that I am the way and the truth and the life. I'm justice, I'm all that is right. Carry on now, carry on. Carry on now. So raise up, raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up, raise up. I have told you that I am the way and the truth and the life. I'm justice, I'm all that is right. Carry on now, carry on. Carry on now. And I am the way and the truth and the life. I'm mystery, the day and the night. Carry on now, carry on. Carry on now. So raise up, raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up, raise up. So raise up, raise up.
Take me in like I've never been. Lead me down to your heart, sugaring. Take me in by the river's bend. There I can wash away
'Cause I've been there once and I'll go again, just as long as you're the one to take me in. Like a free bird circling in the wind, I'll fly to your cage so you can take me in. Oh, won't you take me in? 'Cause I've seen our mothers cry within, from our fathers who refuse to call us kin. But I sing my hands and nails in their skin. Let's break this curse. Won't you take me in? Oh, won't you take me in? Oh, won't you take me in? Oh, won't you take me in? Let's go!
I'll admit the fact that I settled for somebody just to fight the lonely. Put myself out on the line, tried to change the old me. Changing almost broke me. Been the life of the party, done the worst I could do. Chasing love that was pointless till it pointed me to you. All the hurts I ever held just held me back. I've been bruised and burned, but somehow I'm intact. All the times I thought I might have reached the end, I'd do it all again. Everything I did to get to you. Everything I did to get to you. On the road to where we are, you think I might have lost me somewhere in the city, but you saw me from the start to see the world